All
Okay,
right. All
sounds
right.
good.
Let's go. So now I'm Nija Howard. I am the host of Let's Talk Over Teas. Teas stands for Training, Educational Advocacy, and Support Show. This show is all about for single parents who are raising children solo and how can we empower and make them better. And today I have a wonderful guest. His name is Cesar Espino, and it is such a great honor to have him today on our show to share his experience as a little brown boy growing up in a single parent household and what that looks like. So, Cesar, thank you so much for being on Let's Talk Over Teas.
Yeah, definitely, Nigel. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to be here, and definitely, I'm here to hopefully inspire your audience and be able to leave them with something that's gonna resonate with them, that can help their own journey.
Excellent. I really appreciate that. So, you know what, Cesar, let's just jump right on in, okay? So,
Yeah.
I want you to tell the audience, give me a little bit of background before we jump into how amazing and awesome you are in today's world currently. I want you to give me a little bit of story and tell me about what it was like growing up as little Cesar in your environment. What was it like?
Yeah, definitely. So I was born in Mexico, Mexico City, and it's interesting because again, and I think I'm gonna tell you really from the beginning is where everything shaped for who I am now. Right? I was born to a single mom. Never met my biological father. Don't even know his name. Never have any background in terms of that. Right? And so I was born to just one parent, which is my mom, and again we were the typical, I guess, Mexican family where we didn't really have anything. We have nothing to show for. And at that time, my mom's mom, who I also grew up with, it was really they were both my givers and the ones that were taking care of me.
That's to
And then
abuela, right?
my abuela, exactly.
Your
Yeah,
abuela.
yeah, exactly. And then I had an older brother, right? And so maybe that was as close as I could have as a father figure. He's 2 years older than me, and he was, my best friend, and we were, working through that. Growing up as a kid, though, that's where I think a lot of things shape up for me. Not having anything to show for, and really living in this one house, which it was really more like a room, the four of us, which was no bigger than 250 square feet, no running water, no electricity, and nothing to show for, made out of plywood and sheet metal. That was our home, though. And from there, there's so many different memories, right? And my mom and my grandma would always make the effort to make sure that we were somehow satisfied, that we were taken care of, that we had not only we were educated in the sense of education, but educated as people, like not falling to any negative aspects or things that were negative influences. They were very big on that stuff. And really that's what kind of shaped up the rest of my life. What's interesting is that at the age of 4, my mom, I had just turned 4. It was like 4 months after I turned 4. My mom decided to take her leap of faith by leaving me and my brother with my grandma in Mexico, and she migrated to the States. And obviously, you can see it in multiple different aspects. Me as a kid is like, well, what did I do? Why did that
Yeah.
take place? You kind of tend to figure out, was it me because that's why she left? And no, she left because she wanted to give us a better life. She
Yeah.
wanted to provide for us. I commend her for that. That's a huge sacrifice to do, to be able to leave your family and not see them for many years. For me, it was like almost 6 years, not see them for many years, to
Wow.
be able to take care of you and provide for you. And sure, that shape different things. I started working at an early age of 4. My abuela, my grandma, my older brother, and I would have to work at the flea market selling cookies and donuts and a bunch of different things. That didn't work out too good. And I said we graduated from that and we started sewing clothing. So we each had our own sewing machine, and we're sewing clothing to be able to provide food. There was times that we didn't have anything to eat. All we had is what I consider to be the Mexican specialty dish, which is a tortilla with a grain of salt. The beauty of all of this, though, is that we were probably very poor, yet we were rich in terms of love. There was so much love and abundance that was given to us from my grandma, from my mom, from far away, being able to make sure that we have the means to at least survive. I mean, we didn't have anything. For sure, we didn't have anything. Yet, I think sometimes kids, the way they spell love is time. What time is that parent giving you? And so we were definitely getting a lot of that through my grandma. And finally, my mom, when I was 10, she came back to Mexico, and then we all migrated to the United States. And there's a quote by Abraham Lincoln that I really love. And as I think about it now, and I go back to that, he said, "I am who I am because of my loving angel mom." Obviously, my grandmother just passed away a couple of years back. I say I am who I am because of two moms. I had two moms that really cared for me and took care of me in many different aspects and many different lessons. The idea of engraved in my head of educate yourself and do good and try to become the best person you can is what really helped me throughout my life. Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of downfalls, and I've learned a lot of different lessons, and I've gone through many different challenging times in my life. Yet both my mom and my grandma have always been there for me to support me, even in the good and the bad. And
Wow.
so that to me is huge,
Yeah, that's excellent. And, you've made so many great points there. And, one of the things I wanted to acknowledge is that last year I published a book called Raising John's Boy. And it's for single mothers who are raising sons alone. And in one of my chapters, it's called Hard Times. And a little bit of it says, seeing and living hard times pushes your son to be independent, self-sufficient, give back, be humble, think smart, work hard equals working smart, and thinking hard. Struggle and hard times, unhappy moments are invaluable lessons that every human being should experience.
Wow.
And I put that in there because I'm listening to you and how you said, here you are, this young boy, and you could imagine the strain between you and your mom when she had to leave you, right? And the pressure that she had to endure, but the stress that you also had to endure, but you still maintained. And being under your grandmother's tutelage the way that you was, you learned how to sew your own clothes. You learned how to be grateful for your tortilla and salt.
Yep.
You learned hard work. You learned work ethic. We can always look down on poverty, but it is through hard times that we learn great skill, great tools, ingenuity, and loyalty, and great characteristics of who we become. So thank you for sharing that aspect of your growing up in your early time. Lately, we've been hearing, and not lately, this has been for centuries, we've heard statements like only a man can raise a man, or women cannot raise men. How do you approach that when you hear that? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I want to make one point to what you were talking about earlier. And I believe exactly what you mentioned. I think that sometimes from a pain or from a probably not so good of an experience, a purpose is born, right? So a lot of times when we look at it from that perspective, we have an experience or a pain point, whatever that might be. And when you start extracting those lessons and you start looking at it from that perspective, you're going to be able to create a purpose, whatever that purpose might be, to help mankind, to do something great for you or your family, right? So I wanted to just kind of add to that. The idea of well, if you have a father figure missing in the picture, or only men can do this or only females can do that, I honestly do not agree with that. I think that I'm a living proof of that. My mom did met somebody when she came to the States, and I see him as my dad now. He's my stepdad. Nevertheless, even looking at that from that perspective, he didn't have to take my mom with two kids. He didn't have to do any of that. And so I believe that there's the idea of great men as well as great women. And I think comes down to the values, the principles, and really the ideas that are in your head in terms of what do you want to do for other people or even your kids. And so for me, although I did have some challenges growing up, because again, I grew up without a father. I didn't turn out to be that bad. I mean, I did have some challenges. Yet I recognized that my mom and my grandmother, both gave me so much value, a value system and so many teachings that at the end of the day, it's like, no, I think that they did pretty good. They did pretty good. So when people think about the idea that only a man can raise a man or a female can raise a female, I don't agree with that. I think that it really comes down to what is the intention, what are the values, what are the habits that you're giving or living with your kids, right? And really how what is the intention you're trying to create for them at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I concur completely. I think it's really about the values, like you said, and the habits and, the teachings that you're providing them. And it has nothing really to do with gender.
Right.
You talked a lot about, your challenges and your struggles, being under their roof. Tell me about some of your challenges that you did experience. And let's explore that a little bit.
Yeah. So I would say that the very first challenge I had, one of my very first challenges coming to the States, and maybe a lot of people can relate to that, being a minority. Okay. For me, one, I felt out of place. And that was a challenging time for me because number one, I couldn't speak the language. I had no friends. I didn't know anybody. And I really did feel out of place. I felt that I didn't belong. My mom at that time, yes, she was my mom. Again, though, as a child, she was gone for 6 years. Although she was providing for me, she was gone for 6 years. And so I felt out of place. And I remember telling my stepdad, I said, you know what? I don't belong here. You're not my dad. So you cannot tell me what to do. Send me back to Mexico. That's a lesson to take from that. Oftentimes we as people are afraid of what's in front of us. We're afraid of that opportunity. And we let the fear take away the opportunity. And I was kind of in that moment in my life at that time when I said that. And because of that fear, I wanted to be comfortable being poor. I wanted to be comfortable working. I wanted to be comfortable not having anything in Mexico because I was afraid of being uncomfortable in this great nation with my mom and my grandmother and my stepdad and the opportunities. Oftentimes we go through that ourselves and we allow the fear of the unknown, or because we don't want to be uncomfortable, and we go back to what we're comfortable, to that abusive relationship, to that job that is not serving us, to being overweight because we don't want to go through all these different things because we are uncomfortable. So that was the first lesson. The second lesson for me, I was literally 15 and a half, and I say we, except it was my girlfriend at the time, we got pregnant. Okay, mind you, I am a kid having a kid. I had my daughter at the age of 16. Just 6 years being here, I had my daughter. And many people will say, is that because you didn't have a father, someone to teach you on how to be that and this and that? And I can argue that in many different ways. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. I was having a kid. And I said to myself at that time, I'm going to make sure that I take care of my daughter and I give her everything that I didn't have as a kid, including a father figure, including being there for her. And I made that promise. And to this day, I've kept that promise. I've given my daughter everything I can, not to enable her, so that there's a sense of appreciation. And I always said she's the son that I never had because she appreciates everything that I've given her. And again, I go back to that. When you have that value system, if my mom, so let's think about this for 1 second. If my mom or my grandmother didn't give me any values, then me as a man, I would have said, you know what, I'm not gonna take responsibility. Yeah, I'm 15 and a half, 16, screw this, I'm not gonna deal with this. And I would have left, as we see in many different couples nowadays. Well, that was not the case. I had to take full responsibility of whatever actions, and I had to become that man. So I grew up to be a man pretty fast. I had to become that man for my daughter and be that father figure that I didn't have to her. And so that was another challenge. And I see that's a good challenge because I've learned so many different lessons from that. I didn't, gave into temptation with drugs or gangs. I actually ended up working harder to provide for my daughter. I will go to school. I was in high school, so I will go take the bus at 6:30 to get to high school, then go to school. I was taking all AP classes. I will get out of school. I will take a bus to drive or ride for about an hour to go to work for 8 hours, and I wouldn't get home until like almost 12:30. Do my homework and do that every single day. It got to a point where it was a little bit overwhelming, so I have to drop all my AP classes and take regular classes. Yet I still graduated with honors from high school.
That is excellent.
So yeah, so it was those little things that were happening, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Now I know, and I want to touch on this a little bit because I was
Yeah.
reading somewhere where you did spend some time incarcerated.
Mhm.
That was also one of your challenges. And I want you to
Right.
explain a little bit about that and what that looked like as well. And the reason why I want you to elaborate on that as well, and I brought that up, is because I want you to be able to tell the audience, because I want you to kind of like get those naysayers who says, you know, you had all these troubles because your father wasn't in the home. How do you respond to that?
Yeah,
What do you
again,
say?
I think we I think it was Will Smith that said this, and um, he said something to the point of, it is not your fault that that person cheated on you. It is not your fault that you did X, Y, and Z. It is them for sure your responsibility to take and acknowledge that. And so whether I had a father or not, and I grew up with a father figure, it doesn't matter. That's not my fault. I couldn't do anything about it. Yet it is my responsibility to accept the fact that that was my reality and that I was being raised by two great women. And with whatever actions I might have done in my past, they're my responsibility to take those and acknowledge them. So for me, again, growing up, I had all those different challenges, and it was in my early 20s. I was about 22, if I remember correctly. I was a very angry person. Why? I have no clue. Is it because I had no father figure? Because I have no clue, really. I was a very angry person, and in one of those cases, my daughter's mom and I got into a physical fight, confrontational fight, which led me to go to jail, for a couple of days. And again, I go back to that. My mom was here. She was there, my rescuer, although she didn't approve of my actions, she was there to support me and help me and lift me up. And then this idea synced in, and the idea of, I didn't only let myself down, I let my daughter down, I let my daughter's mom down, I let my parents down, my grandma, everybody. And when I start taking that responsibility and seeing it from that perspective, it's like, this is not me. I need to go back to the principles and the values that were taught to me growing up. This is not me. I cannot blame this on not having a father. I cannot blame this on the society. I cannot blame this on anybody, except I have to take the responsibility. And I make that shift. Luckily I came out. My daughter's mom ended up dropping the charges. And so there was no charges against me. After 5-6 days, I came out, and I said, I got to make some changes, because at that point I ended up losing a lot. My daughter, or my daughter's mom ended up moving out with my daughter. So I'm like, now I'm not going to see my daughter. Now I got to be more involved with my daughter, because I'm not going to separate that.
Right.
Whatever. Here's another thing too that I really don't understand. When you have a couple that they're having challenges, whatever that might be, and there's not that connection or that love, they tend to fight over all these different things without realizing that the kid is watching. Or they stay in this relationship that is no longer serving them, still fighting, and then the kid is watching.
Yeah.
I said, that's not going to be me. Yes, we had a little bit of a confrontation. How can I make this better? To make sure that even though I'm not with my daughter 24/7 and her mom and I are separated, how can I allow for my daughter to see that, one, we're best friends, and we are now, actually, we're really good friends. Number two, for her to see that even though we're not together, that she's still going to have two loving parents that are going to raise her with values and principles. And that was my idea. How can I do that?
That was
And
excellent.
I've done that.
That was really phenomenal. What I really appreciate is how you didn't project or deflect blame onto anyone else. You took full accountability for the mistakes that you made, the errors that you made, and you made a choice to say, I'm going to fix what I broke. And
Right.
part of doing that is taking full accountability and being responsible. And then I appreciate how you put your daughter's feelings before your own. You said, I'm not going to participate in something that I know is going to be detrimental to her. I'm going to step back and I'm going to fix this. And this way we could provide values to her. That is so, so key and so remarkable as a parent, as a great dad. And so I want you to share with the audience about a little bit more about, one is, what is the response, the man's responsibility to the baby mama? How does a baby, how they say it, baby, how do you prevent baby mama drama? And how do you begin to foster good co-parenting?
Yeah. So I think part of that is you have to surrender. Okay. And you don't surrender to give up. You surrender to accept. You surrender to accept the situation. You surrender to acknowledge what's in front of you. For me, again, after I went through all of that and really staying connected with my daughter's mom and being able to have conversations and being able to say, I'm still here for you. How can I help you? Even though we're not together. Wrongdoing or not wrongdoing doesn't matter what took place. We always got to go back to this, by the way. Our past is merely an experience. It's an educational experience. And so we got to be able to extract the lessons from there to be able to become better by 1% each day, right? And so for me, I look back and I said, well, I obviously had my fault. Now I got to figure out how I can change these things and create this relationship outside of a emotional relationship or a loving relationship with my daughter's mom. And sure enough, obviously I did that, and we came to an agreement. We didn't get anybody involved in terms of like the courts or any of that. We came to a mutual agreement that I am going to do whatever I can to provide for my daughter, for her school supplies, for her medical, dental, all of that, and buy her clothing, and also give you a monthly allowance so that my daughter can be taken care of perfectly, and you don't have to worry about that, right? So there's no point of us getting anybody else involved. In my opinion, why is because when you get somebody else involved, they're going to take a cut of that. I don't want that. I want my daughter to get all of it. I want her to be taken care of. And so we came to that agreement. The second thing is, because I am a firm believer, my mom and my grandma were a firm believers of education. I continue my education. Right now I have an MBA. At that time I was going through my bachelor's, and I went through all of this aspect. And through that I landed really, really good jobs. And funny things that took place. I would sometimes go out because we obviously are high school sweethearts. We had a lot of friends that are mutual friends, so we'll be at the same party together. So instead of getting there in different cars, we'll go in the same car, as friends. And then people are like telling me, like, you guys came together? Like, you guys are actually gonna dance together, sit in the same time? I'm like, yeah, there's no reason why I wouldn't. I cannot hold any grudges again. That's my daughter's mom, and if I portrayed any kind of negative aspect on that, that is gonna drip down to my daughter, and I don't want that. So that was one occasion. A second occasion, my daughter's mom remarried at one point, and I was working at this company, and her husband at that time was struggling finding a job, and I offer. I'm like, I can probably give him a job. And I got criticized, and I got talked by many different people. Like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Why are you giving him a job? And I said, you know what? The only reason why I'm giving him a job, it may not be so much for him or for my daughter's mom. It's for my daughter. I'm like, what do you mean? Because if he has a job and he is bringing money, that means that he's not having any arguments with my daughter's mom, which means that household is taken care of, which means that at the end of the day, my daughter is being taken care of. Why wouldn't I do that? Again, you got to be able to think about it from the bigger picture, right? Exactly. Like, it's not about you. It's about who are you trying to take care of? And I did that. And sure enough, I'm like, hey, everybody's gonna be happy. I win. My daughter's happy. Everybody's happy. Let's move forward.
I mean, and then at the end of it, you can boast your ego out and say, hey, I helped this guy get a job, right? If you want exactly. to. But because that's the flesh and the human person, if you want to be immature about it. But what I really love hearing you say is that you kind of look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You can't look through just the little lens of, oh, I'm feeling bad right now. I'm feeling like, who are you? And I want to hurt you. It's not about you anymore. It's not about her anymore. It's about the child. Right. And it really is. And so that is great information, and again, I love it because it's coming from a male's perspective. And it's so important that young men and adult men understand, the role and what it's supposed to look like, right? And again, what I appreciate about you is that you didn't blame anyone. You didn't say, oh, it's her, it's him, it's them, it's that. You said, it's me. I gotta fix me. I gotta, what could I do? Right. What am I going to do? And, and I appreciate how you even acknowledged, because I mentioned this in Raising John's Boy, keep the courts out of your life. The moment you include the court system into your space, it's a wrap. And they're like white on rice. They're like, they have claws.
Exactly.
And they're not going to let you go once you're in the system. And they really are not there, even though it looks good on the outside, by saying the best interest of the child. You and the father and the mother, you are the best interest of the child. You have to take control of that. And so that was key information, Cesar, and I really love that. And I love the responsibility that you've taken over your child. Say, this is my daughter, and I'm going to care for her from beginning to end. And also how you even, mentioned, you put an allowance out there. You was willingly capable and able, without a fuss, share your money and share your goods. Did you ever have feeling or thought of, maybe I should take a job off the books, or maybe I should pretend that I'm poor so that I don't have to pay my daughter's mother? Did you ever have any thoughts of that? And what do you say about, to the young men out there, or the grown men out there, who feel like, I'm gonna pretend like I'm not making no money because I don't want the courts to come after me, and then I have to pay that witch who's taking care of your kid. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So from my perspective, the answer is no, straight out no. And again, I totally agree with you. I don't think that the courts are there to help you or the best interest of the kid. The best interest comes from the parents, whether you guys, specifically when you're doing co-parenting. And so for me, it was that, like, what can I do to make sure that, one, my daughter's mom is satisfied that I'm doing my part, so that we don't have to get anybody involved, and I can take care of my daughter 100%. I've never, if there was times where I might have lost my job, I would tell my daughter's mom, like, I don't have a job right now, yet I'm going to figure out how I can make it work to make sure that I do take care of that. And there were some times that I said, you know what, I'm not going to give you anything this month just because I don't have any means. Yet as soon as I can, I'm going to give you that plus more, right? And it was always going back to that. And for me, again, it goes back to this idea of what I know. My biological father didn't want me to come to this world, from my understanding. And so again, for me, it's like, I don't want to be that person to my daughter. I want to give her everything I can. And so even, I think at this point, I've traveled to like maybe 30 different countries. And I would say, except for the last couple of years, I would say my daughter has been with me on maybe 20 or 15 of those different countries, because I made a point that, yes, I was in my 20s and my early 30s, and I wanted to go out travel and look at the world with my daughter. I want her to come and be part of me, be part of that. And so I would never pretend like I didn't have the means when I did. I would never try to hide any of that, because I wanted to make sure that I can take care of my daughter from that perspective. Even to the point where my daughter's mom, there were times that she was also, again, on challenging times. I'm like, how can I help you financially? How can I help you? She's from El Salvador. Her grandmother passed away. And again, I was very close to my grandmother because I grew up with her. And I said, you know what? You need to go to El Salvador. I'll pay for your plane ticket. We're not together. She was already married. I will pay for your plane ticket. Go take care of that. Go be with your family, support them, and I'll take care of our daughter. And again, I think it really comes down to that. Like, man, you got to step up and you got to take care of responsibility of your kid. This is something that it breaks my heart to see people or men that do not step up to the role and don't do what they have to do. And more so are in these arguments with baby mama. Like, why? It doesn't make sense to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's amazing. And I'm listening to you, and you just sound so mature, and so many men need to hear this. But women also need to hear that there are men out there that are willing, and we know that you're capable and that you're able, but are you willing? And so I think that the great part about you and the message to the single moms out there, that there are men out there who are willing. They are willing. And so if you have a father who is demonstrating the behaviors that Cesar Espino has demonstrated, be easy. And it's easy to be in a relationship as a co-parent with someone who is willing to meet you halfway, and sometimes willing to put in a little bit more. And without the, well, I did this, you should have did that, and tick for tack. It's nice to say, this is what I'm able to do. You was honest. You said, I don't have it this month, but I know that when I have it next month, I'm going to double up because I missed this month. Those are very mature ways to keep a great civilized relationship with your baby's mother, and again, making a healthy co-parenting lifestyle for your child. So that is really amazing. I want you to tell me a little bit, about, we have some men out there, and as we're bringing this to a wrap now, but I want you to help me to understand and help the audience out there to understand the difference between the different fathers. Now, when you say single mother, everybody knows that means that there's a woman who has her child with her full time. But I have been reading and doing some observation, and I've also done a little research, and I've looked at how a lot of men identify themselves today. If they are a single man with children that they're not caring for, they still call themselves a single father, right? Then you have the single father who is caring for his children 24 hours, 365, like a single mother. So how do you identify the two? And is the single father whose children he's not caring for, or, sees them once or twice a month, how should he identify himself versus a single father caring for their children 24/7? Is there a difference? Is it the same? I just want to get your point of view on that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a difference. I do have a few friends that are actually single fathers where, and you see it, obviously you don't see it as often, yet you do see cases where the mom might have abandoned the kid with the dad, right? And so that is a single father to me. I think that somebody that's sharing custody or seeing the kid once every weekend or every couple of days is more co-parenting, right? They're because again, they don't have the same responsibility or the same weight as a single mom or a single dad, right? And so there's a difference. I think there's a major difference, and I think they need to be able to identify themselves as such. Although I do believe sometimes we might use that just to grab attention. Maybe it sounds good, it looks good. Nevertheless, though, the responsibility is a lot less. And I think within the co-parenting, though, there's also different layers, different levels. I know I was very heavily involved. I was co-parenting very heavily with my daughter's mom, and I was very involved in all the activities that I could with her, right? And then there's some other ones that they just, especially if they're through court. Well, I got visitations rights on Wednesdays for 1 hour, and that's all they get to see the kids. I think that's bad. I think that's wrong. I don't condone that for no means, except that's, and then they call themselves single dads, right? I think you have to really differentiate yourself, and then if you're co-parenting, do more at the end of the day, because your kid is going to appreciate that when they grow up. They're gonna see that. I go back to what I mentioned earlier. Kids, they spell love as time, right? And so when you give your kid more time, things are going to be better when you guys grow up. There's not going to be all those grudges.
Excellent. And I love how you said earlier, you and your daughter's mother are best friends now, right? And that a big part of that is understandable, considering how you took the role on at 15 years old, saying, I am a father, I'm going to be, a great dad. And you took that role on. and bravo to you. And now I want to kind of like bring it to the forefront now and talk a little bit about, I want to splurge on you a little bit. You are an author. I want you to talk a little bit about your books, because you have several of them, and what is your role in the community now, and why did you take on that role?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say a couple of years back, I wanted to, I think I came back full circle, and I was working for corporate America, really good job, traveling all over the place, going out to nice fancy dinners, like having the nice corporate job that, I didn't think I would ever have, way over six figures, and I was doing pretty good. And yet I wasn't satisfied. And I started thinking, what's missing here? What is the one thing that's missing? And for me, it came back to, I wanted to make a difference in this world before I leave. Part of that, I think, is because I went back to when I was growing up, not having a lot of different things. And I'm like, if that kid had a different life, in other words, myself, if somebody would have come to me at that time, how I'm talking to people now, my life would have been way different, yet I wouldn't change it. And so what if I can impact somebody's lives by empowering them, inspiring them, and aspiring them to do anything they want? And so then I decided to take my own leap of faith, and I decided to leave my well-paying job, benefits, all of that, to become a full-time entrepreneur. I began my career as a real estate investor, flipping properties, wholesaling, teaching that aspect. And then through that, I started doing a lot of self-development. I started doing a lot of inside healing and working on myself. And I started changing many different habits. And through that, I discovered that, what about if I write a book? Something that I can give to people that might be inspiring them in one shape or form. And what's funny about that is that, again, our biggest enemy is what's inside of our heads. There's an African proverb that said, when there's no enemy inside, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm. Whatever's inside your mind,
Wow.
fight that, right? Is your
Wow.
biggest battle is the one in your head. And so when I decided to write my book, I started talking myself out of it. I'm like, hey, Cesar, who are you kidding? You don't like to read. You're not a writer. Who's going to buy your books? Like, just give up. And I talked myself out of it. And sure enough, I did. I'm like, you know what? Yep, you're right. Little voice. Who am I kidding? And so I went through that for about 2 months. And then the idea came back again. And I'm like, what if I don't do this for anybody else except for me as a self-accomplishment? What if I do this so I can leave a book that my daughter can read many years after I'm gone? I changed the frame. So sometimes if we start changing the frames on how we see things, we can get better ideas, and we can actually go ahead and attack that and take on that challenge. And so when I changed the frame, I got to work. I created a target plan. I don't call them goals. I call them target plans. I created a target plan, and I said, by this day, I want to be published and finished with my book. And I sure enough worked through that, and I actually finished 2 months prior, which I'm super happy.
Wow.
And I published my book. It's called You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. It's a memoir of my life. Everything we talked about, I'm an open book. I take full responsibility. I talk about my incarceration, all of that in that book. And my challenges as a kid, and the times that I had to work, all of that. And it was not so much about my story, it's more about the message. My hope is that somebody's going to find a phrase, a word, a sentence that's going to resonate with them, and is going to impact their life in some sort of shape or form. And after I got that published, people started getting the book, and I was like blown away. I was getting all these beautiful comments from people that were like 14 to all the way to like 70, and saying, wow, your story is amazing, and you've made me see things from a different perspective. And that filled my heart. And I'm like, I need to do more of this. I need to definitely do more of this, because this is what I was missing. So I call it my highest intention. My highest intention is to empower, to inspire, and to aspire other people to become the best version of themselves. And how can I do that? Through my books, through other stuff. So then after that, I created a podcast called You Can Overcome Anything. So I have a podcast where I talk about a lot of different things. And then the idea of write more books. And so that's how I landed the book with Mary. And I was invited to be one of the co-authors on that book. And so I talked on that book a little bit about my story too. And since then, I have a total of 9 books. 4 of them are
Wow.
best international sellers: Canada, US, Mexico, Australia. And the last book, actually, I had sales in India, which is amazing because the message is all over India.
Wow.
So that brings joy to my life for sure. And so that's what I'm doing now. That's what I'm doing now.
Wow. That is so phenomenal. I mean, to see, you know, see this little guy, this little hijo coming from Mexico,
Yeah.
right? This little son coming from Mexico and having to eat tortillas with a little bit of salt, and having to learn how to sew, and working at the flea market, and really having to just sacrifice and to struggle and to go through these challenges and to grow into this young man, being away from his mother for 6 years and having to adjust and figure out what that looks like, and battle with emotional traumas and stress of having her that maternal mother leave, but being there with your mom. And then I'm kind of like going through your life here, and then you finally get transferred over to the US of A, and you find that you're a little displaced, and you don't feel so connected to you because you don't speak the same language, and you're like, well, where do I belong? Do I
Mhm.
even belong here? You start to challenge your stepfather to send me back because this is not home for me. I don't feel safe here. I don't feel wanted. I don't feel needed. And then you stay the course, you decide to stay. But the moment you make that decision to stay, now you become a father. You find out that you're going to become a father, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, look at your story. And so you're growing into 15 years old. You realize, I'm going to take this responsibility and I'm going to become this man that I did not have when I was growing up. And I'm going to utilize those value systems and those life lessons that was instilled in me from my mother and my abuela, from my grandmother. And I am going to become the man that they themselves wished that they would have had. And I think that is really a phenomenal story and journey, and to be such an exceptional role model for your daughter so she can know what to look for in a man, and to understand that hard work and ethic, and perseverance and determination and discipline leads you to where you are now. But it's even more so because you was able to land that corporate job, but then you was able to say, you know what, I have to tap into that purpose. I have to tap into what makes me fully happy, because it wasn't about the money. It was about your happiness. It was about what brings you joy. And so you was able to tap into that, and start your own business. And now you are a world-renowned author of 9 books.
Yes.
Bravo
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bravo to you. And so as we come to a close, I like to end it because I am the president of an organization called Young Men Strong. And this is an empowerment organization that incorporates media, consulting, and mentoring for young boys and men of color. And so I'd like for you to just share, and I want you to complete the sentence. I am a young man strong. You can say the whole sentence and then tell me why.
Okay. I am a young man strong because I believe it really comes down to my roots, my mom, my grandma, and the teachings, the values, and really the fact that they never gave up on me. The fact that sometimes somebody else's belief in you is much stronger until you believe and start believing in yourself to take on that responsibility. And they believed in me. And to this day, my mom still believes in me. And to this day, I still go to the grave and visit my grandma, and I give her thanks for everything she's done for me.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Cesar Espino, thank you so very much. It has been a pleasure. If there's any way you want, any last words you want to say, maybe you want to share how people can get in contact with you, and
Yeah.
maybe buy your books.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me pretty much on every social media, Cesar R. So Cesar R. Espino. And then that's actually my website too, CesarRespino.com. And just go to Amazon and you can pull up my name and you can find all my books. And I'm pretty much in every social media. And I would probably give you my my last advice for you is a relationship advice, and I'm not good with relationships, except make sure that you don't cheat on your future with your past. A lot of times we tend to live in the past, and we're cheating on our future with the opportunity that's in front of us. Stay focused on today and learn the lessons that took place yesterday and start planning for the future.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So this has been another beautiful episode of Let's Talk Over T.E.A.S, training, educational advocacy, and support for single parents around the globe. I'm Nija Howard, your host, also known as the Single Moms Coach, and it has been a pleasure with another episode. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.